What happens when two dudes, one a retired Navy SEAL commander in Colorado Springs, and the other a hippie meditation teacher in New York City, get together to discuss living mindfully? That's a great question, because we don't know what will happen either. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness, with co-hosts John McCaskill and Will Schneider. Each week, we take an authentic dive into how mindfulness continually impacts our lives, deepens our relationships, and allows us to be emotionally alive. We filter all of our conversations through the man box, where we unpack how as men we are expected to act in society, how fighting the authentic human experience is exhausting and damaging, and how mindfulness can help. Now, on to the show.
All right, here we are, Men Talking Mindfulness. And I tell you what, if there's ever been a time where we haven't known how the conversation will go between a Navy SEAL and a hippie in New York City, and now we're going to bring on a sex therapist, we're going to be talking about sex on social media live. So definitely have no idea how this will go, but I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. But here I am, John McCaskill in Colorado Springs, and my brother from another mother, Will Schneider, there in New York City. And we are here, Men Talking Mindfulness. Today, we're going to have Courtney Boyer. She's our sex therapist that's going to come on. She's not our therapist, but she is a therapist that's going to be talking about sex with us today. But before we get into that, I'm going to turn it over to Will to plug our awesome sponsor.
Yes, well, I want to say hello to everybody out there. Hello to our audience. Hello to you, John. Courtney will come on in a second. Great to be here. It's a beautiful Friday here in New York City. And we're bringing back Halo Sport. They're our hydration company. And what I really love about the company is that, and we get to support a small business, which I think is really important. They're New York-based, female and minority founded brand that specializes in the cleanest and most functional hydration. Halo Sport is a unique hydration blend of electrolytes, minerals, and vitamins, and now available in a convenient and eco-friendly powder pack. And it's only 1 gram of sugar per stick. So it's loaded with vitamin C and vitamin B, right, to help boost your energy and your immune system. Also has a lot of natural electrolytes, which I would like, John, is that their electrolytes come from their trace ionic minerals from the Great Salt Lakes of Utah. So a little shout out to Utah right there. So you can use Halo Sport anytime, at once a day, or anytime you're working out and you need that extra. You really need to stay hydrated when you're working out. And on a personal note, I know the owner, Anshuman. He's a great man. He's been a friend of mine and a yoga student of mine for the last 3 or 4 years. Also, the company is super eco-friendly. They're actively reducing their carbon footprint by switching from plastic bottles to aluminum. And also they have their powder stick, which also helps to reduce carbon emissions because they're not carrying on all the heavy weight of the water and stuff like that. So if you want to get your Halo Sport, head to halosport.com, right? That's HALOSPORT.com, and use promo code MTM2021. That's Men Talking Mindfulness, MTM2021, and get 20% off. Plus, we have our free giveaway that's back on. So for the next week, if you go to our website, mentalkingmindfulness.com, and sign up for our email address, we're going to draw our winners again next week on what's that day? The 7th of May. And we'll pick our winner from there. And Halo Sport is kind enough to send you a 1-month supply of Halo Sport. And that's for 3 different people that we're going to do that for. So super excited to have them back on today. Super excited to be here. And let's talk about sex, John. Let's do this.
Let's do it. I should have brought in the old song, man.
I know.
Yeah. So we're gonna bring on the expert here. So let me see. There she is. Oh, I pushed the button twice. Hey, and I'm sure that's a joke in and of itself. So many little jokes. So, hey, Courtney, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. I'm just going to run through your bio real quick. And again, I didn't get the green shirt memo. Definitely, before the show, we were talking about the old M&M joke, the old green M&Ms. Increase your desire or whatever. But yeah, next time we talk about sex on the air, I'll make sure I wear the green shirt. So Courtney is a clinically trained mental health and sex therapist. As a relationship coach, Courtney educates, equips, and empowers individuals so they can confidently cultivate a life they love. Courtney also coaches parents on how to talk to their kids about sexuality. She enjoys spending time with her active duty husband, Nathan, and their 3 children. Courtney also loves coffee and wine, me too, and serving her military community. Welcome, Courtney. So excited to have you here.
Thank you, Will. Thank you, John. I'm so excited to be here. Yay!
We're going to have a lot of fun.
Thanks,
We're going to have a lot of fun.
Yes.
So before we get too much further into the show, I think you may have watched 1 or 2 episodes, but we kick it off with a grounding practice, time to kind of get us centered and, hey, with the nerves amped up again, talking about sex on social media live, I need it. I need a grounding practice. So Will, brother, over to you.
Make it good.
Super excited to talk about sex, John. Let's do this. Okay, so anyway, let's ground ourselves down to begin. And this might be something you could do before, we'll talk about this, Courtney, something before you kind of get intimate. It's just like grounding yourself, calming yourself down, releasing and relaxing from stress and anxiety. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing, please. If you're sitting, then bring both feet down to the floor. If you're like walking around, listen to the podcast and you're at the grocery store or something like that, just stop. Make some contact with your hands. Maybe they're interlaced. Maybe they're on your thighs. Maybe they're just on the table. Close your eyes when you're ready. If that's safe for you to do. And I want everybody to just empty your breath out through your mouth with a nice little yeah, there we go. Good. And take a big giant breath into the nose. Feel that breath filling from the bottom, middle, the top, front, back, up, down. And exhale, let it go out again. With some sound. Yes, good. And go. Bigger breath in. Exhale out. Let's go. A couple more. In through the nose. Inhale. Out through the mouth. We'll do one more. In. Bigger breath if you can. Feel that breath even like kind of push all the way up into the base of the brain and let it go out. And let's do 5 breath cycles in and out through the nose. Yes, we're going to inhale for 4 seconds and be very slow and particular on the exhalation for a long count of 7 seconds. So let's go. Empty out to begin. Let the breath go through the nose. Go. Inhale, biggest breath you can, proactively breathing in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Just pause here for a moment. Get very intentional. Right at the very beginning of the exhale, let it go out for 7 through the nose. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Just hit that bottom. Feel that emptiness, that stillness. And inhale again. Inhale 4. Hold here. Exhale slowly. 7, 6, 5, 4. Really work for that nice, slow, calm exhale all the way out. Hit that bottom. Feel that emptiness. Inhale again. 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice. Hold. Feel what it's like to be full of breath. Exhale. Let it go. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Couple more. Inhale 4. See, maybe even bigger breath. Pull it in even more proactively. Holding. Feel that fill. Exhale 7, 6, 5, 4. Slowly. Good. 2, 1. And last one. Inhale 4. Hold that balloon. Exhale 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good. And back to a few normal breaths in and out. Really soft and slow. Create a nice rhythm between your inhale and your exhale. And just check in how you're feeling emotionally. Just check in. It's okay, whatever it is. Just I want you to notice, just by tapping in and getting to know ourselves emotionally, we raise that bar of our emotional intelligence, which is going to create so much success in our relationships and our work with ourselves, just by simply noticing where we are emotionally and how we're feeling. Okay, we'll finish with 1 big breath. Let's empty out again. Let it go. Biggest breath you've taken so far. Keep going. Inhale. Inhale. More, bigger, 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 bigger. Hold that breath. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then exhale every through the mouth, through the nose, with a sigh. Let it go out. Yes. Easy, easy, easy. When you're ready, open your eyes and welcome back to the show, everybody. How we doing? How you feeling, Courtney? It's good to see you today. Good to have you here.
Good to see you.
Thanks. I know it's the first time we're meeting here on the show. So it's, and you're in Germany, which is awesome. This is our first international guest, I think, John.
Fancy.
Yeah, we tried for Mexico, but we had no luck.
Oh yeah, that's true. It didn't work. But
you're our first successful guest.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So, well, hey, Courtney, reading through your bio, reading the wine and the coffee part, we should have coordinated and had some type of specific wine for the show, like a pairing for mindfulness and sex.
Oh.
Next time, the next episode that we do.
Absolutely,
Mindfulness.
yes. Round 2, and you wear the green.
Yes, and I will wear the green. That's true. So, Courtney, just to kind of establish yourself for the audience. I mean, I read the bio. Sure, that's all well and good, but people like to know who you are, why you got into what you do, and how you did. So, why don't you just kick it off with a quick intro and explain a little bit about what drew you to do what you do, and then we'll get into a little bit of the questions and comments.
Yes, awesome. So, I grew up in Seattle, south of Seattle. My dad was a private investigator that specialized in child sexual abuse allegations. So in one side, I grew up with, I worked for him starting when I was about 14, would put cases together, would transcribe interviews for him. So I had this exposure to the really destructive world of sex and how that can be terrible. Looking back, I'm like, what was my dad thinking, a 14-year-old doing that stuff, but whatever. And then I also grew up in the church. So I went to a Christian school and really was raised in the purity culture, wrote letters to my future husband, the virginity pledge, the whole 9 yards. I went to a Christian college and was planning on being a lawyer because that's what I was good at, arguing with people, apparently. I always knew that I wanted to help people though, right? And so I didn't know about this, what that even could entail. So my junior year of college or sophomore year of college, I read The Women's Room for one of my pre-law classes, and it totally changed my life. And it really brought to light how women have just kind of been sold a lie of goods when it comes to sexuality and their career and what they're capable of. And at the same time, meeting my now husband, who had a much different upbringing when it came to sexuality and his sexual experiences. And it just kind of all came to a head. And I was like, this is wrong. We need to be talking about this. We need to be helping people. And this is something that should be celebrated. Sex is a gift and should be celebrated. So I told my parents, I don't want to go to law school. I think I want to study sex instead. And, right.
What was that reaction?
Yeah, I was going to say, from a bunch of Christians. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they actually were like, okay, well, if you think you know what you're doing, and sure. Okay. So I went to grad school, got a master's in human sexuality with an emphasis in education, worked as a sexuality educator for a year or so, realized that people would come up and drawn to me and ask me questions. And I just wasn't qualified to answer and really help them. So I was like, this point, I'd been married for a few years now and was like, honey, actually, I want to go back to graduate school again. And so I went back and got a master's in mental health counseling. I opened up a mental health and sex therapy practice, then had our third kiddo. My husband got orders. We moved. So I had 3 kids under 4 in Texas, in San Antonio, and was drowning. Didn't know anybody there. It was a lot. And so kind of started to go through this process of myself of feeling resentful and stuck and overwhelmed and exhausted and surviving. Then we moved 3 years later and to North Carolina. And my dad, who was one of my best friends, passed away. And that's really what led me to the coaching world, was needing to get out of that depression and be able to help people. And so I am a relationship coach now because coaching doesn't require licensure. And since we're military, we move a lot and it makes it difficult to maintain licensure. So,
Sure.
yes, so that's essentially how I got to where I am.
Wow. Yeah. So we're thrilled that you are here, and we're thrilled that there are people that do what you do, because we all need the relationship work. We all need work in the bedroom. Whether we think we're great or whether we think we're not, we all need work there.
Yeah.
So I'll jump right in with some of the questions that we kind of posed to you earlier this week. So with mindfulness, I mean, we all know what mindfulness is, or at least that's what's being talked about on the show. For those who are tuning in maybe for the first time, mindfulness is being intentionally present in the here and now and focusing on the moment, the physical sensations and the emotional sensations. So it only makes sense that we have a conversation of how mindfulness and sex go together.
Absolutely.
So in your thoughts or your opinion, Courtney, what are the benefits of living mindfully and bringing that into the bedroom?
Yeah. So just a real quick caveat. Anytime I do talk about sex, I always like to just kind of give the audience permission. If anybody feels triggered or they feel overwhelmed because of a past trauma that you haven't dealt with, please do some self-care, like take a break, come back. We'd love for you to join us when you're ready. Definitely reach out to a mental health professional, somebody who is trained in dealing with trauma, so that when things like this happen, you start to develop coping skills and strategies. And then another thing is sex means different things to different people. And so most times that when us as heterosexuals are discussing sex, we think penis and vagina sex, but I just wanted to, the audience, if that doesn't apply to you and sex means something different for you, then just put that assumption in and use what works for you.
Great. Right. You're definitely a professional. Boom, right there.
Yeah, I know. Thanks. So yeah, tell us about mindfulness and sex. How do they go together? How does it work? What does it look like? How does it improve or really benefit relationships and also maybe our self-confidence or something like that?
Absolutely. I think mindfulness is one of the most incredible tools that we can use to improve every area of our life, and sex is no different. The more in tune you are to your body, the more enjoyable and the more in touch and heightened your experience can be. I loved, Will, the breathing exercise that you did, because actually one way to really intensify and elongate orgasm is by holding your breath at the top of a climax. And then that really makes it more powerful. So that's a fun tip for everyone if they want to.
All right, I'm writing that down right now. I know, I'm writing it down. Right, I already did, John. I'll remind you.
I was like, did he do this on purpose? Because this is perfect. Holding that breath right up there. Yeah. So
good.
What I see, especially for a lot of my women clients, is that they're so disconnected from their body. A lot of them have been raised in the church. And so there's a lot of shame associated with pleasure in your body and especially your genitals. And so there's been this disconnection and encouragement in a way to be separate from that self. And so one of the things that I find mindfulness is so powerful in doing is bringing the individual back to their body, to celebrating it. But that can feel really overwhelming if you don't see your body as a safe space.
Yeah.
Yeah, get your engines revving there. Okay.
Yeah.
So mindfulness definitely helps get you aware of the areas where there is that resistance. So really paying attention, especially to the different chakras, like the sacral and the solar plexus and the throat, really tuning in, where am I finding that resistance in my body? And then seeking a way to work through that and find someone to help you with that.
Great.
Well, mindfulness rocks.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit more about that disconnect and where does that come from, or how do we actually get into that, more of that reconnection to ourselves? You kind of mentioned some maybe some tools or something, and how that actually would benefit us and how that will bring not just more pleasure to, I'd imagine, what we're doing sexually, but also to our partner and being more present for them.
Yeah. So one of the things that popped into my head when you were asking that was a really simple exercise you can do is just like take your arm and close your eyes and just like feel like just slowly like touch your arm, like caressing it or pet. I don't know what they're like. I hated that word petting in high school or whatever they taught you. You're just and focus on the sensations. I've worked with clients who cannot do this. It makes them so uncomfortable because of either they have body image issues, body hatred, any type of sexual trauma that they haven't addressed. And so really starting to check in, then do different parts of your body. These are sexual touches or sensual touches, but they're not necessarily meant to be arousing. If they're arousing, that's great. That's fantastic. But the point of this is to really start to be present with where you feel this and where it like kind of trickles down to. So when you start to maybe do caress or touch your legs, like maybe you start to feel a warmth in the genital areas, or maybe you don't. Like just really the beauty of mindfulness is that it brings you into your body. Will, you had asked about that disconnection. I think when especially for women, and I'd love to hear if you guys have heard this from men, where because we have so much shame associated with sexuality and women's bodies have been objectified so much, like women can't even breastfeed in public without like getting stares or having a debate about it. So there's a lot of issues that women have to unpack when it comes to their bodies, and giving themselves permission to enjoy it, to be proud of it, to like seek to understand it, to explore it. I don't know if you guys have had discussions in your relationships, and you don't have to share, but that's one thing that I've always find interesting is when couples don't have those conversations about how they feel about their body, if they're insecure about their body, if they really are able to be present during sex, or if they're just like focusing on, in and out, get it done.
Yeah. And wrapping it up with that, in and out, get it done. Have you found, I guess they get wrapped up in their minds when they're in the bedroom for a couple of things. Either they're replaying stuff from work, let's say like anxiety from work, maybe, or they're replaying a pornographic film that they've seen before and they expect to live up to that,
right?
Or they have a certain goal in their mind. A lot of the time, that goal being the orgasm,
right?
And how does that affect what's going on, right? And really quick, also, just before you answer that, sorry, I'll give you a second to think about that.
You're fine. You're fine.
I see a lot of comments here about the church and the Bible and everything. And we do try to keep the show as apolitical and non-religious as possible. So we're just going to let that conversation happen, but we're going to be right here with our conversation with you, Courtney, in regards to the physical side of how mindfulness can help in the bedroom.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And just a caveat, I still identify as a Christian. And so that's something, but I work with people of all faiths. So a couple of things that you said that I love. One of the easiest way to really, well, not the easiest way, but a really helpful thing to do is to reconsider the purpose of sex. Like when you said that the purpose is orgasm, like so often we see sex as goal oriented. And what I try to encourage clients to do is to see it as pleasure oriented, right? It's not a destination, it's a journey. Like if there is a destination, quote, an orgasm, great, fantastic, but it's really like sex serves so many purposes. Orgasms serve purposes as well, but we tend to like muddle the two. Sex is also a skill. People think that just because they have genitals, like, oh, I should absolutely know what I'm doing and be able to like get it on and be great at it. And yeah, there are some people who are naturally like great swimmers, and there are people who are naturally great speakers and really great in bed. That's not everybody. And so what happens is, because we lack this skill set and toolbox to give people to become better lovers, more, lots of awareness, they turn to pornography, because that's like education 101, right? Like that must be, and this is something I see with our youth. And this is why I'm so passionate about talking to parents and equipping them with ways to have these conversations with their kids, so that they don't turn to Google and they don't turn to the internet, because that's not like, that's a fantasy. That's an act, right? Like that's entertainment. That's not what sex is and what real people do or can do. It's a steroided, hyped up version of an act.
Mm-hmm.
There's something else you said. I'm trying to remember now.
It's just how we kind of almost talking about the stress and how we bring that into the bedroom, performance anxiety, and then also what we see as what, So
the biggest boner killer is responsibility.
Explain. Yeah.
So this again, as a mom, like when you have 17 things running through your head of like, oh, did I put the clothes from the washer into the dryer? Oh, who's going to pick up James tomorrow? Who's going, right? Like that's not keeping you in your body. That is not keeping you present for sex. So you're just not really going to be there. You're kind of going through the motions. A lot of women are so exhausted from the responsibility and the burden and the emotional care if they're staying at home with their kids, or even working and staying home with their kids, and they're not able to communicate that to their partner. So then the partner's like, yeah, all right, kids are in bed, let's get it on. All right. And they're like, are you kidding me? Like, who's going to do this? Who's going to do the dishes? Who's going to do that? So there's the stress prevents them from being mindful, from being in the moment. And I see this too with my male clients, is they are so worried about finances and providing in the 401k and all of that they're like, oh, maybe no, not tonight. Right. Because it's not just women that say no, men say no too. And there's this myth that, men should be these, sexual prowess and always like, they're always wanting sex. And I have women that I know where it's the opposite in their relationship. And that's okay. It's not bad or abnormal. There's nothing wrong with you because your male partner or your female partner. That's why communication is so imperative.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was actually one of the questions we want to talk about is mindfulness in communication, and not just what is verbally being said, but what is being communicated through our body language.
Yes.
So, could you talk to that for a second?
Yeah, I think so. It's like one of the gifts I have is I'm really astute to people's body language and just like their energy and behavior. Some people are less skilled at that. And so that might be something that I'd encourage you to look into, especially if you have a monogamous partner or somebody that you regularly engage with, so that you pay attention to their cues. Like, are they like, look at their eyes, look at their, like, if they're like, tight in their shoulders, or like if they're clenching their fists or taking shallow breaths. Those are all indications of stress and overwhelm. Nobody wants to have sex with somebody who's stressed out and overwhelmed, because that they're not going to be present, and it's not going to be an enjoyable experience. I mean, hopefully you don't want to have sex with somebody like you. That's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you do in those cases? Like, say you're attuned to body language and that kind of, nonverbal communication, or maybe even getting some, indications that that they are stressed out. Like, how, how do you soften that person, or maybe just there's no opportunity for sex there at all. But, if you are like, say, a man and you're like really would love some sex with your woman, or your partner, whatever that looks like, are there ways or just kind of to calm them down, to maybe get them in that space, or, any kind of tactics or tools or something?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So one thing is just bringing that awareness and asking, hey, I noticed that like you seem a little distracted, or you seem a little overwhelmed, or you're a little bit quieter than usual. Do you want to talk about that? Or is there something going on? Or if you know that like it really drives your partner crazy when there are dishes or laundry or kids awake, get that done. Like knock it out. Like get it done. Then show them, right, that you're trying, not so that you can have sex, but kind of, you know, like it's not that, it's not that I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for us, and I'm doing this in a way that this benefits us. And communication, like I cannot emphasize this enough. And asking, right? Like I ask my husband, like, hey, you want to have sex? You want to do that? Whatever. And however he responds isn't about me, it's about him. And so often what I see, especially for men, is that they feel so rejected over and over again when their partners continually say no. They're like, oh, it must be, you know, whatever. It has nothing to do with you. It's about them. So if you want them to be more receptive to sex, then you need to figure out why they're so shut down.
Yeah. Wow. And is that something you would, you know, what if you have like a drought in your relationship or you haven't had sex? Is that something that maybe you go out to a sex therapist, or, you know, maybe you need to change environments or something like that, you know, like go to a hotel or like go on a little vacation or, you know, something to maybe like, you know, spark that fire again is there. Because I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners out there or people that are in relationships for a long term. And I'd imagine sometimes, you know, that intimacy could get a little stale or just boring because like, you know, maybe there's no nuance in intimacy in the relationship or something.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so the erotic is lessened the closer we are. So the more, the closer, right. And it's just, you would think like, oh, well, we're like best friends and like we hang out all the time, and COVID, we're home all the time. Like, yeah, that's great. Like, no. Closeness is what causes like, I need some excitement. I need distance, not necessarily in like, I mean, yeah, I guess physical, but like that your partner has their own thing, you know, like they have things that excite them. They have things that you don't necessarily know all the intricacies about. That's why sex and your hormones and everything are going crazy at first, because when you first encounter someone, you don't know much about them, and it's so exciting, and that's erotic, and that's arousing. And then when you get to know that they snore if they sleep on their right side, and like they don't like calling their mom on her birthday, and you're just like, oh my gosh, that's not hot, guys. Like that is not hot. So what do? Try and find ways to create like that distance. Again, I'm not talking about separating. I'm talking about finding ways where you're your own person and you have your own interests. You still share things, but you also kind of have this like one thing I find so sexy about my husband is that he's really great at his job and he's super successful. And I know like 50% about what he does, but I don't want to know more because it's exciting and it's arousing to know like there's this whole world over here that he's like really good at. And like, ooh, you know, kind of, have you ever seen The Big Bang Theory? And like, and Penny, and when her and Leonard, and you know, like he's like this nerdy guy, and really, like she has no idea, but it turns around. It's like, good for you, Penny. Good for you. Another thing that helps to increase intimacy, increase this mindfulness and closeness is absolutely changing environments. If you can be away from the piles of laundry, if you can be away from your work, which so many people are working from home now, if you can change that environment, it tricks your brain into kind of like, ooh, this is exciting. This is something fun and different. We haven't had sex in this sink before, or this, you know, hotel bathroom or whatever. Like, let's try that. That's why affairs are so exciting, because you have the emotional distance, or, you know, you don't know a lot about. I don't have to worry about his or her 401k, or, you know, like if she does her laundry or whatever. And there's no responsibility, which again is the boner killer.
Which again goes back to why the relationship is so hot and heavy at the beginning. And like you said, then you find out that the person snores, or that they don't call their mom on their birthday. And you know, that they're a human being. where you
Of
have
course.
them kind of built up as this something more than that, and then you find out and you get disappointed. How can we avoid that disappointment that we have in relationships? And I want to be clear too, because my wife is probably going to watch this at some point. I'm not disappointed, babe. I love you. I got to put that out there.
Amazing. Yeah. I think giving each other permission to be honest and open and be like, you know what? I'm really just kind of struggling. Like, I remember one time when my husband and I were just not, like, he was in med school. I hardly saw him. We just had our first kid. And he was like, I don't think I'm in love with you anymore. And I was like, yeah, okay, well, you suck, or whatever. But we were able to work through that because he was vulnerable enough to communicate how he felt. And so it forced us to be like, you know what, you're right. We're totally neglecting our relationship. And that's something that needs to change. And it did. And it's normal to have the ebbs and flows in the relationship, and giving your partner permission to share that with you, not with the fear that they're going to leave, but the truth and the beauty of what can come from that openness and the honesty. Will, you had asked about when couples go for a really long time, do they seek a sex therapist? What I see is the lack of sex 95% of the time is a symptom of something in the relationship itself.
Yeah. You just brought up, like, I mean, about communication, vulnerability, and that's like creates a sense of intimacy already, right? When you're communicating on that basic level of just, or you're just like, I love you mentioned, it's like the mysteriousness of what your husband does, right? And also the sexiness of it. And just, I know, like, when I'm asked about what I do with my partner, I love sharing it. And I feel more open, and I feel like more connected to her because, because I want to share my passion.
Yeah.
So those things I imagine would help to increase, the intimacy, not just in the bedroom, but, in the overall relationship itself. And I think that would lead to, I'd imagine, some more sex within the relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. And finding too what works. I always get the question, how much sex should we be having? What's normal?
Yeah, what is normal, Courtney? What is normal?
What
makes you healthy, Courtney?
So what I ask them, I will ask you, why do you want to know?
That's a great question, because I think when I ask that question, I'm like measuring up. It's like, well, if I have 5 or 6 times a week, it's like, what are my other friends doing?
Exactly.
I'm just being funny here, but yeah.
Yeah, no. I know. I appreciate you being a good sport. It's true, right? That's why we want to get a gauge of where we fall within the collective, and we're like, oh, phew, totally better than everybody else, or
exactly,
whatever it is. So I tend to, when people ask me this, I always ask a question with a question, or answer a question with a question. And then I will eventually share that studies show that couples that have sex once a week are the happiest. What happiest means is not necessarily defined. It's subjective, of course. I've worked with couples who, and they didn't come to me because of the sex thing. They came to me for something else, but they have sex once a quarter, once every 6 months, and they're super satisfied with that. I have couples that come to me who have sex every day, and they're super satisfied with that. So if your sexual activity with your partner, you're happy with it, you guys are both like, yeah, this is great, this is wonderful, then it's not problematic. It's not my job to tell you, oh, you should be having it at least this amount of time.
Yeah. I think it sounds like you're saying, like, the communication within the relationship, like outside the bedroom, I think it is so important, because it's like, if I'm okay with once a quarter, once every, I wouldn't be, I don't think, but if I was, it's just like, and my partner's okay with that, then that's great.
Absolutely. Yep.
And Wellington here is saying dry spells are normal. People in long-term exclusive relationships will tell you the same thing. So, I'm just like speaking to one of our commenters here, one of our audience members, but I guess there are dry spells in a relationship as well, because things can be really John, you're going to have a third child in a little bit of time, and your wife will be healing and all that kind of stuff. So, it's I guess that, like you mentioned earlier, ebb and flow.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But what, like, social media, let's say social media, phones, the phones that we constantly have on us, TVs in the bedroom, what about those and how they contribute to the dry spells that we have? And should we work to cut those out so that we have maybe less of a dry spell?
Yeah. So I think, I don't really know if I like the word dry spell, because it almost insinuates that like there should be, like there's a
More.
standard and an expectation.
Yeah,
right.
I think it's so different for every couple. If you know that like you struggle with becoming consumed with the TV or social media, then don't put that temptation in there, right? If it's not going to enhance or improve your relationship, then you don't need it. Or if it's becoming a hindrance, then if you're totally fine sitting there every night scrolling and doing social media or whatever, and you're satisfied, both of you are, then okay. But if it's becoming, again, problematic, it's the same with like work or working out or meditating or whatever, when you have these activities that consume you and distract you, and in almost a way allow you to avoid having to deal with the emotional and the vulnerability or the vulnerableness of that relationship, then any of those things should be addressed.
Well, so mentally escaping there, so potentially mentally escaping via social media or binging Netflix or whatever the case may be. What about mentally escaping actually during the act? And specifically, and this is going to be a little difficult to go down, but if someone has experienced trauma, specifically sexual trauma,
right?
What do you say about those who are mentally escaping during the act? And is there any way for them to come back and enjoy sex?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's totally hope. It requires work though, right? Like it's not an overnight, it's not a pill. It requires a lot of deconstructing, a lot of healing, a lot of, and that's not fair. It's not, that happened to you and now you have to go be the one that processes it. But it's a way of regaining that freedom from that perpetrator is by reclaiming your body and by taking that power back and really enjoying the body and the gift and the sexuality and sensuality of it. It's going to happen, the mental escape, right? Like you're going to check out, be aware of it. Right? It's not about judging yourself for when it happens, but it's really important that you don't make it a habit and recognize, like, I don't like just being like this vessel that just kind of lays there. That doesn't feel good to me. That doesn't benefit our relationship. And so I need to do something, or I need to figure out why I'm retreating and checking out.
Mm-hmm. And then a related question, and this comes from one of our audience members, is how to recover from a bad sexual past. Maybe not trauma, but maybe you've just had bad experiences where maybe it was just awful sex with a certain partner or a certain time, and now you're thinking the whole time that sex is just bad. How do you recover from that?
Yeah. So totally recoverable. That's the great thing. Like all of this is recoverable. Working with someone who can help you rewrite your sex story. Like that's essentially what it is. It's about forgiving and releasing the past and starting to reclaim and create that future that you desire. If you find yourself in situations where you're like, oh my gosh, like I had one client who repeatedly had cheaters. She kept attracting cheaters in so we had to like look at her self-worth and be like, so maybe you don't think you deserve anything better than this standard here. And so we really worked on bringing her up and helping her to realize that, no, I do deserve somebody who's faithful and who's loyal. So in that respect, sometimes when we have bad sexual experiences, not trauma related, it can be a creation or attraction of our own that because of our low self-worth or our low self-trust.
Wow. Thanks. I almost want to share an experience I think would be very helpful for the audience. But I also have a question for you, Courtney. It's like, so what if, what if you're in a relationship and you haven't had sex in a long time, and, and you guys haven't really spoken about that part of your relationship? Like, how do you begin to broach that conversation mindfully? Or, what are the things that you can do in order to maybe, open into that conversation so you can get back, to being intimate and have a deeper relationship?
One of the things that I find that was really, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is connecting emotionally. Like so often we take sex so seriously, like it's fun, like be playful. And if you are playful outside the bedroom together, if you are curious about your partner, if you are loving and encouraging and flirting, that's how you begin to connect and be vulnerable together. And that can translate and open the door to that sexual connection. So if you are in a position where you are not, it's been a while and you're like, oh, this has gotten to the point where now it's awkward. Like, right? Like, just embrace the awkward, right? Because there have been so many things where in life, like life is too short to just allow things to just keep growing and growing. It's not going to fix itself on its own. Like, unless you get drunk, which, I really don't recommend doing. And that forces you to, have the liquid courage to go and do it. Like, get over your ego and be vulnerable outside of the bedroom so that you can emotionally connect, open up. And that is sexy. That is connection that translates into getting back on a more consistent connection.
One of our audience members says, "I do a sexy dance for my wife, and she laughs at my humor." and then he continues. He says, "I don't mean to brag, but so, good on you.
Brag all you want, sir."
I love it.
Keep going, John. Go ahead.
Well, no. Another one of the.
No, John. Sorry. Okay. Well, actually, I think it might be helpful. Like when I was a younger man, I was like 26, 27. This kind of comes back to that recovery question, and I was out of college and and getting in more relationships, and I was just premature ejaculating a lot. Like, I mean, I just was like, quick, sex was short and quick, and I felt all sorts of shame, and I didn't feel I was a good lover, and so actually, and I wanted to fix that because I felt like it actually destroyed one of my relationships and someone that I cared about deeply, and I actually picked up a book and how to overcome premature ejaculation, and I worked with the book. Like it helped me really get into talk about mindfulness. It's like I never really thought of the book in this way. I still have the book, I think. Not like I use it. I've actually lent it to friends. You know what I mean? Because they're like, "Oh, tell me about this." So it actually helped me get in touch with the feeling, just be right, like during not the orgasmic feeling, like the complete release, but like they had like a scale of like 0 to 10, right? 10 is like, okay, it's out, it's happening, you're orgasming, right? Whereas like, and the kind of 8 and 9 would be like the point of no return. Right. So it would the practices of like I would be masturbating. I'm talking about this on the air, but I think it's very helpful to share this.
It's like normalizing,
right, and so they say like to work yourself into a space where you can continually stay in that 6 or 7 range is super pleasurable, but you're not it's not going to be over very soon. Right. And then getting better at that and getting familiar with yourself, through masturbation in this case, and then they take it a step further where. And then I ended up having a partner. I told her about this book because we're kind of having the same problems. And she was like, "Oh, let's work on this." Yes. So, and also in the book, it was like, "Let's work on this together." Yes, so
there's so many great exercises.
Yeah, we had some really great exercise together. It really brought us so much closer to work on this problem that is not just my problem, but is our problem because we're in a
Absolutely.
relationship together. And I mean, and my sex was so much better. I felt more
Good.
confident as just a man in general. We had a better relationship. Sadly that ended. I went on to have better relationships, and I felt like, oh yeah, I got this bedroom thing handled.
Good. That's fantastic. Yay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I just want to share, because it was something I wanted to be, I wanted to just have better relationships. I just wanted to be more intimate, because for me, when you prolong sex, it gets bigger and bigger, and the orgasms could even be greater. If you're not just always working right for that orgasm, but really enjoying and checking with your partner.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to know too that most men ejaculate orgasm. They're not technically the same, but around the 3 to 5 minute mark. And women, it's more like the 10 to 15 minute mark.
Wow.
So for the men out there, if you are like, like I'm ready, right? So that might be a motivation to really learn how to delay. And there's nothing, and most women too aren't able to orgasm through vaginal penetration. So I'd say about 60 to 65% of women need actual clitoral stimulation as opposed to just pounding it in.
Yeah. Well, that was like I would work to like a 15-minute. I literally set a timer.
Yeah.
And then go for it.
That's so great.
I know, John. I mean, I
dude, I love
embarrassed.
it.
But
You're being totally vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, but hey, you know what? Like, why not? Right? Raw, uncut,
unapologetic.
Right? And but here you go. You just said 10 to 15 minutes for women, 2 to 3 minutes for men, and here I am in the book, like being a heterosexual man, working for that 10 or 15 minutes, and it's been a lot of more fun being able to have that longevity during sex, for sure.
Yeah.
Good.
But I also love that you said, hey, this is what the average is, right? Mm-hmm. And going back to our performance and what we're comparing our performance to, and a lot of men in particular are comparing ourselves to what we've seen in pornography, right? And I mean, those they last a long time, right? And you're like, oh damn, I didn't last an hour, so I'm inadequate. So that comes back to those feelings of inadequacy, and that leads me into my next question, and it's actually tied to some of the questions that are off here by some of our audience, is poor body image, like having that poor body image because, hey, you have gone through life, maybe you've had kids, maybe you're a dad with kids, maybe, I don't know, maybe whatever. How does that contribute to difficulties in the bedroom, and how can you overcome that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's just that sense of self-consciousness, of like, oh, I do not look good at this angle, or like, oh, that's kind of getting in my gut's getting in the way of whatever. I would really check in though to see if it is actually impairing your ability to perform. So often it doesn't. We think it does, right? We think that we're a lot worse or grosser or whatever than we think we are. This is a tough one because, we want to feel good in our bodies, but we think that if we change how our bodies look, then we'll feel better. And that's not the case. Like, you can feel good in your body, even if it looks different than when you first had sex with this person. Like it's the choice, and learning how to manage your mind around that. You can still accept your body for what it is now and still want to work towards a better body, whatever that is for you. And doing it for a variety of reasons. Like, I work with women who I'm not a weight loss coach, but some of them will be like, well, one of my goals is to lose weight. And I'll be like, well, what do you want to lose it for? And I'm like, if you want to lose weight to look banging in a bikini, like, I don't care. Like, that is totally fine. Just own it. And be aware of the reasons for why you want to do X, Y, or Z. But I think that when your self-consciousness and your body image starts to impact negatively your sex life, like, then something needs to be done.
Great.
Does that answer your question?
It does, 100%. Thank you.
Okay.
And then the last question I'll take from the audience, and then we'll start to wrap it up, is we talked about checking out because of potential past trauma. What about checking out from physical pain that you may have? One of the comments had the audience member has steel in her leg, if I remember correctly. The comment's kind of gone by, but and has physical pain. How do you manage having good sex while you're still in physical pain?
Yeah, so sex should never be painful. That's one thing that a lot of people don't realize, that when it comes to especially women's physiology. So I'll answer your question, but I did want to make this just kind of known, is that so a woman can absolutely be aroused and turned on and still be dry. Her genital lubrication is like can fluctuate so much. I mean, if you're having sex for an hour, please have a lube. Please use a lube. Because you're going to dry that sucker out super fast, and that leads to tearing, and that leads to pain, and nobody got time for that. So the lube doesn't mean that there's something wrong with her, like she should be able to produce more. It's just a tool. Like wetter is better. Wetter is better. So just throw that on there.
I want to write that one down too, Will.
Yeah.
Done, John. Yes. That'll be my next tagline.
Will, you're not taking notes anymore.
I am now.
So if you have not compromised anatomy, but your body is in a situation where you do find pain, or you do switch what sex means to you, right? There, you adjust, readjust, like maybe focus on oral sex, maybe focus on digital penetration, maybe focus on other erogenous zones of the body. There are so many different ways that you can orgasm, and giving yourself permission that there's not something wrong with you because you have to go do it a different way, but really embracing the opportunity to like explore your body and explore different ways to receive and feel pleasure.
Wow.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah. I gotta hate. Okay. I'm going to ask one more thing, and then we got to go. It's like, so let's take, sex outside the bedroom, in the sense of like, not sex like in public places, but like sex, like, how the sex could start. I mean, it has for me, in text conversations, in like notes, in like making a date. Like, how important is that to arousal and increase intimacy and connection in a relationship?
Yeah.
Great question.
Foreplay is everything between sex acts. Everything. Every day. So who you are, how you behave, how you treat the kids, how you treat the waiter, the messages that you send, right? You're either
elevating or decreasing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No, that's okay. I guess we're in a podcast too.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. And when this is down, everybody's down. So.
Wow.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, what else, Courtney? We're going to wrap it up here. What have we not discussed? Although I saw some people already say in the comments they want you to come back for another show, because I'm sure we didn't cover enough in 1 hour. So
no, definitely. Well, actually, I mean, I want to talk about, and this could be really taboo. It's like, toys in the bedroom. Like, do we bring in different types of toys, and what is that like? Is that awkward? Is that weird? Is that like strange? Is that too porno? You know what I mean? Like, and I think that might be fun as well to talk about, because we are talking about intimacy and arousal and relationships and orgasm and all the great things that, like, part of our human existence is to have sex, or else we don't, proliferate the species. So we might as well have fun doing it, right?
Well, and the beautiful thing is, like, the clitoris, the only job of it is pleasure. It has 9,000 nerve endings. That is twice the amount of nerve endings that are in the glands of the penis. Twice. Thank you, God.
Wow.
That's what I got.
There you go. Yeah, so we'll start to wrap it up here, Courtney. Yeah, amazing comments and insights. So thank you so much for being here with us today. If people wanted to connect with you and they had more questions, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can find me. I'm about to start a rebranding process, but right now I'm at the Stepping Stones Coach on Instagram and at Facebook, and on LinkedIn I'm at Courtney Boyer Coaching.
There you go.
Okay, yeah, you just want to say those again. The Stepping Stones Coach, is that what you said?
Yeah, the Stepping Stones Coach on Instagram and Facebook. My website is thesteppingstonescoach.com, and yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Courtney.
Thank you guys so much. I really had a great time.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, and we wrap up every show with a grounding practice. And
Okay.
heading into the show to talk about sex, I needed a grounding practice to settle me down.
Right.
Heading out of the show after talking about sex, I need a grounding practice to settle me down.
Down, boy, down. I'm kidding.
That's right.
Oh, the stories I could
Hey,
tell
you
you.
can't have fun, right? If you can't have fun with it.
No,
So.
absolutely.
So yeah. All right. Well, if you're comfortable, Courtney, I'm gonna run us through a quick grounding practice because we are coming close to the hour. So go ahead and get into a comfortable position, much like you would in the bed. So hey, we're gonna get comfortable here, and if you're comfortable doing so, close your eyes. Otherwise, just soften your gaze and bring your attention to your breath. And we're just going to do a simple box breath like we've done before. We'll breathe in for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, and we'll do that 4 times. And we'll begin by breathing out all your air. Breathing in. Hold for 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe out for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4. In for 4. Hold for 4. 3, 2, 1. Out for 4. 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4. In for 4. Hold for 4. 3, 2, 1. Out for 4. 3, 2, 1. Hold for 4. The last one. In for 4. Hold for 4. 3, 2, 1. And out for 4. 3, 2, 1. And hold for 4. 3, 2, 1. And just breathe naturally. And now when you're ready, go ahead and start bringing some movement back and open your eyes or refocus your gaze and come out of the practice on your own time. Courtney, been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
And Will, brother, always a pleasure. And I'll turn it over to you, Will, to wrap it up.
All right. Well, hey, thank you everybody out there for listening, for being part of the show. Enter our Halo Sport Challenge by heading to mentalkingmindfulness.com, enter email. And we also have a Facebook group, John, right? We have our Facebook group, Men Talking Mindfulness. Join that. We're going to be, that'll probably be the start of our pseudo Patreon eventually moving into. So we're going to be adding content there. We already have,
Courtney's in there.
Courtney's in there, right? So you can ask Courtney, and Courtney, you can post all you want. Other people can post comments. Again, please, everybody, it's not apolitical. It's non-religious. This is a place for all of us, men and women and everyone in between, to come and talk about mindfulness, how it can enhance our lives and and benefit each other as a community. It's so important. And we're all about community here on Men Talking Mindfulness. So thank you all for being here and being part of our community. And I wish everyone a great day. And I think that's it, John. Let's sign off.
All right. And Courtney, hang tight for a second after the outro.
Thanks for joining Will and John on Men Talking Mindfulness. If you enjoyed the show, please like and share it with your friends and family. And please, we would appreciate a review too. Until next time, this has been Men Talking Mindfulness. Thanks for showing up.